On July the 6th of this year, 4 masked men, armed with pickaxe handles and bottles of ammonia, stole £30,000, which was being transferred to the Frampton branch of the British United Bank. The trial of Harry George Bryant, accused of being one of these men, is already in progress. Bryant has elected to defend himself and has shocked the court by suggesting that the police had shown Bryant's photograph to a key witness, one of the bank staff who was attacked, before he took part in an identification parade.
I did not show Mr. Rowan the photo deliberately. There are very strict rules governing that sort of thing, which I wouldn't dream of disobeying. What happened was, Mr. Rowan arrived at my office a short time before the parade took place. Well, suddenly I was called from my office on some other urgent matter. Unfortunately, I'd left the accused file open on my desk with his photo in it. When I returned, a matter of minutes later, Mr. Rowan was standing by my desk looking down at the file and the photo. Well, he said, "That's him, all right." I asked him what he meant. He pointed to the photo. I told him he had no right to be looking through the file.
Telling us that Mr. Rowan was poring through the file.
Oh, no, my lord, the file hadn't been touched. It was still in the same position, upside down from where he stood.
Nevertheless, Inspector, it was a very serious mistake on your part.
I admit I was at fault, my lord, but there was nothing intentional about it.
Well, intentional or not, Inspector, you must agree that my chances of a fair identification parade after that was impossible.
Don't know about unfair. Unnecessary, perhaps. After all, Mr. Rowan had picked out your photograph from many others only the day before. He was sure it was you, all right.
Well, why hold the parade at all?
It was necessary to formalise the identification.
Rubbish. You only hold a parade when there's some doubt.
You should know.
And so should you. However, let's leave the identification farce. You've told the court that you also received a phone call a couple of days after the robbery in which you were told that I was one of the men concerned in it.
That's right.
Anonymous, according to you.
Yes.
Very convenient.
Most tip-offs we get are anonymous. That doesn't mean we can afford to ignore them, unless, of course, they're clearly crank calls.
Did this anonymous informant give you any other names apart from mine?
No, just yours, then he rang off.
Didn't you think that strange?
No, it often happens that way. It's usually somebody with a personal grudge, which is quite common in the world of villainy.
So, on the strength of this convenient bit of information and Mr. Rowan's so-called identification, you came round to my house to arrest me, right?
To question you at first.
Tell me, Inspector, do you usually question a suspect by bursting uninvited into his home?
I did not burst uninvited into your home. Your wife asked me and my sergeant in.
You mean you knocked on the door and she invited you in, just like that?
That's right.
Inspector, I've been married for 10 years. My wife, let alone me, has suffered untold aggravation from coppers ever since she's known me. Now, do you honestly think that she's going to invite you people in just like that?
Well, she did.
She didn't. She opened the door and you stormed in, shoving her to one side, and when she protested, you told her to shut up or you'd nick her as well.
My lord, that is hearsay evidence.
Did you witness all this, Mr. Bryant?
I was in the lounge, my lord. She told me what happened.
You know what hearsay evidence is, I'm sure, Mr. Bryant.
My lord, my wife's not a liar, and I know how these people perform.
And nevertheless, you cannot say what other people have said unless you were present, or unless you intend to call a witness who was present. You know that. Now get on with it.
Very well, my lord. You say my wife invited you in. She will say different. However, once you were in, you came straight to the lounge where I was, right?
Yes.
Did I invite you to stay?
You asked me what I wanted. I told you I was investigating a robbery. I then asked you if you could account for your movements on the 6th, the day of the robbery.
No. That was later, Inspector. After I demanded that you leave my house. After my wife had come in behind you crying because you'd knocked her head against the wall when you shoved her aside.
That's a lie, and you know it.
It's the truth. And then I asked you if you had a warrant, and you said, I don't need a warrant for scum like you.
No.
Yes. All right, Inspector. I say you wouldn't go, despite my insistence. And then you asked me where I was on the day of the robbery. Now, what did I say?
You said you were at home all day.
And you asked me if I could prove it. I told you that my wife could verify it, which she did, right?
She supported your story.
Because it was true. And then you told me you were going to search my house.
I asked if I could.
Liar.
And you said, why not? You'll only go and get a search warrant anyway.
I told you you couldn't search unless you got a search warrant, but no matter. You went ahead and searched anyway, didn't you?
With your permission and in your presence.
Well, that's a laugh. You mean I trailed around behind you while you ransacked the house? My wife did the same with your sergeants.
That's not true.
Well, this is getting hopeless, isn't it, Inspector?
What do you mean?
Well, I say you did one thing, you say you did something else.
My version happens to be the truth.
No, Inspector. It's just that as a professional policeman and a witness for 16 years, your version of the truth rarely gets challenged in a court of law. You and people like you say whatever you want to get a conviction.
That's ridiculous.
That is not a question, Bryant. It's a comment. Stick to the facts.
All right, my lord, the facts. Could the inspector have a look at exhibit number 2, I think it is, my lord, the balaclava? Recognise it, do you, Inspector?
Yes, this is the balaclava I found hidden behind the wardrobe in your bedroom.
It's the balaclava you claim to have found hidden behind the wardrobe.
I found it there, all right. You were there.
Not when you pushed your way behind the wardrobe. I was in the room, all right, but I couldn't see what you were up to, short of climbing on top of you or the wardrobe.
It wouldn't be the first time you climbed on top of someone or something to get what you wanted.
Inspector, would you fold it up and put it in your pocket, please? There. It's not too bulky, is it? It wouldn't have been difficult to have had it hidden there when you arrived. Mr. Rowan had given you a good description of the balaclavas the robbers were wearing, the colour, the shape, etc. You had plenty of time to go to some department store and buy one to match it before you came to see me.
You appreciate, Inspector, you must answer these questions. The sooner you answer them, the sooner you will get out of the box.
You're suggesting I bought a balaclava fitting the description and planted it. I didn't.
Inspector, would you tell the court what I'm supposed to have said to you when you confronted me with your conjuring act?
Conjuring act?
But the balaclava you claim to have found.
Oh, you denied all knowledge of it, but then that's standard practice with people like you. But I did find it, and you know it. And then after a bit, you said, all right, Inspector, who stuck my name up?
Who stuck my name up? What did you understand by that, Inspector?
Well, in the parlance of villains, my lord, that usually means something like, who informed on me.
And what did that indicate to you?
Well, to me, it indicated he knew something about the robbery.
Yes, I thought perhaps it would. I just wanted to be sure. What did he say then?
He asked if he could talk to me alone. I said if anything he wanted to say to me, I would prefer he said it in front of my sergeant.
And what did he say to that?
He said, no, this is business.
And what did you understand that to mean?
Well, knowing as I do, my lord, the way that villains like Bryant think, I presumed he wanted to try and do some sort of deal with me. Well, naturally, I had no intention of doing any kind of deal with him. But I agreed to talk to him alone, because I thought I might learn something about the other men involved in the robbery.
So you spoke to him in private?
Yes, my lord. We went back into his bedroom.
Who was that? Who shouted that? I warn you, I will not tolerate interruptions and remarks of that kind in my court. If I find out who it is, I shall have no hesitation in using my powers to punish him for contempt.